Robeson. Will you please come forward? Mr. Robeson, did you file a passport application on July 2nd, 1954?
I've filed about 25 in the last few months.
Are you now a member of the Communist Party?
Please.
Please answer. Will you, Mr. Robeson?
Would you like to come to the ballot box when I vote and take the ballot out and see? I invoke the Fifth Amendment.
Do you know a Manning Johnson?
He was dismissed from the FBI. Must be a pretty low character if he could be dismissed from that.
I would like to read you some testimony of Manning Johnson. In the Negro Commission of the National Committee of the Communist Party, we were told, under threat of expulsion, never to reveal that Paul Robeson was a member of the Communist Party because his assignment was confidential and secret.
Could I protest the reading of this? The reason I am here today, from the mouth of the State Department itself, is for many years I have so labored. And I can modestly say that my name is very much honored all over Africa. I am not being tried for whether I'm a communist. I'm being tried for fighting for the rights of my people who are still second-class citizens in the United States of America. My mother was born in your state, Mr. Walter, and my mother was a Quaker. And my ancestors in the time of Washington baked bread for George Washington's troops when they crossed the Delaware. My own father was a slave. And I stand here struggling for the rights of my people to be full citizens in this country, and they are not. They are not in Mississippi, and they are not in Montgomery, Alabama, and they are not in Washington. They are nowhere. You want to shut up every Negro who has the courage to fight for the rights of his people, for the rights of workers, and I have been on many a picket line for the steel workers too, and that is why I am here today.
Now, just a minute. You ought to read Jackie Robinson's testimony.
I know Jackie Robinson, and I am sure in his heart he would take back a lot of what he said about me. I addressed the combined owners of the American and the National Leagues, pleading for Robinson to be able to play baseball like I played professional football.
Would you tell us whether you know Thomas W. Young?
I invoke the Fifth.
Thomas W. Young is Negro president of the Guide Publishing Company. I would like to read you his testimony. Paul Robeson has no right to place in jeopardy the welfare of the American Negro to advance a foreign cause. In the eyes of the Negro people, this false prophet is unfaithful to their country, and they repudiate him. Do you know the man who said that?
May I read from other Negro periodicals? May I read from a statement by Marshall Field when I received the Spring Garn Medal from the NAACP?
No.
Why not? You allowed the other statements.
This was a question, Mr. Robeson.
Would you give me a chance to read my statement?
Would you read some of the citations you have received from Stalin?
I have not received any citations from Stalin.
From the Russian government?
No. I received citations and medals from the Abraham Lincoln High School, and many medals from many parts of the world for my efforts for peace. Are you for war, Mr. Walter? Would you be in the category of this former representative who would have had us fight on the side of Hitler?
Did you make a trip in 1949?
Yes.
And while you were in Paris, did you tell an audience the American Negro would never go to war against the Soviet government?
2,000 students who came from populations that would range to 6 or 7 million asked me to say in their name that they did not want war. No part of my speech in Paris says 15 million Negroes would do anything.
I lay before you an article. I am looking for full freedom by Paul Robeson in The Worker, July 3rd, 1949. Quote, I said it was unthinkable that the Negro people of America could be drawn into war with the Soviet Union. I repeat it with hundredfold emphasis, they will not.
And gentlemen, they have not. No American is going to war with the Soviet Union.
On that trip to Europe, did you go to Stockholm?
I did.
While you were in Stockholm, did you make a little speech?
All kinds of speeches.
Let me read you a quotation.
Let me listen.
Do so, please.
I'm a lawyer.
It would be a revelation if you would listen to counsel.
In good company, I usually listen. But you know, people wander around in such fancy places.
I belong to the American resistance movement, which fights against American imperialism, just as the resistant movement fought against Hitler.
Just like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman were underground railroaders and fighting for our freedom, you bet your life.
Why should the Negroes ever fight against the only nations of the world where racial discrimination is prohibited and where the people can live freely? Never! They will never fight against either the Soviet Union or the people's democracies. Did you make that statement?
I don't remember. But 900 million other colored people have told you they will not. 400 million in India and millions everywhere have told you that.
Did you go to Moscow?
Oh, yes.
And while you were there, did you make a speech?
I spoke many times and sang.
Did you write an article in the USSR Information Bulletin?
Yes.
I want to emphasize that only here in the Soviet Union did I feel that I was a real man with a capital M. Did you say that?
In Russia, I felt for the first time like a full human being. No color prejudice like in Mississippi, no color prejudice like in Washington.
Why do you not stay in Russia?
Because my father was a slave, and my people died to build this country, and I'm going to stay here and have a piece of it just like you.
You are here because you are promoting the communist cause.
I'm here because I am opposing the neo-fascist cause. Jefferson could be sitting here, and Frederick Douglass could be sitting here, and Eugene Debs could be sitting here.
Now, what prejudice are you talking about? You were graduated from Rutgers and the University of Pennsylvania.
Just a moment. This is something I challenge very deeply. That the success of a few Negroes, including myself or Jackie Robinson, make up for $700 a year for thousands of Negro families in the South. My father was a slave, and I have cousins who are sharecroppers. I do not see success in terms of myself. I have sacrificed hundreds of thousands of dollars for what I believe in.
While you were in Moscow, did you say Stalin was a great man?
I wouldn't argue with a representative of the people who, in building America, wasted the lives of my people. You are responsible, you and your forebears, for 60 to 100 million black people dying in the slave ships and on the plantations. Don't you ask me about anybody, please. Nothing could be built more on slavery than this society, I assure you. Can I read my speech?
You have made it without reading it. The hearing is adjourned.
You should adjourn this forever. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. In Salt Lake Joe, I says, by God, him standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, Says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. And standing there, as big as life, and smiling with his eyes, Joe says, what they forgot to kill went on to organize, went on to organize. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, he says, you'll find Joe Hill. He says, you'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. I never died, says